Hey everyone, and welcome to the Mytime Sports Show. I'm your host David Andron, along with co-host James Gamble, the owner of the Global Scouting Bureau. We're here today to talk a little bit about scouting and the proper techniques and all the instruments and different things that go into the scouting at the college professional level. Welcome, James. I'm glad you could join us.
Yeah, thanks for having us on. It's been a long time for us, and I'm excited to get back and start contributing. And we finished another, summer and fall season, and we're looking forward to the new year.
Yeah, it's exciting to be back. We've been super busy with baseball season and a couple of different colleges and the scouting world, but things have always changed. You and I have written a couple of books on the recruiting process and scouting, and everything changes in the world. So today we just want to kind of talk about the call to scouting or be an evaluator. We have so many coaches that follow us and always calling, asking questions about scouting tools and different things. But it takes a little bit more than just, hey, I want to wake up and I'm gonna be a scout today. There's something behind it that it's something deeper. You can't just be a coach that, hey, I'm gonna just evaluate. You got to actually know what you're doing. So talk a little bit about your background and kind of how you got caught in the scouting.
Yeah, well, for me, it was unique. I mean, I was a student of the game from a very young age. Some of that is based on having a lack of ability. You have to find out how to succeed. So for me, it was from the neck up. I was fortunate to be able to play both collegiately and professionally, but I was always around much better athletes. So learning at a young age was really the key for me to want to stay in the game and wanting to develop the tools to be able to scout. With that being said, I mean, there was some tools that I had to learn because you go off of your own gut instinct. But then again, as you're growing up, you're a player and you see the game through a different lens. So learning how to use that new lens was really important. And, for me, I had some good people to mentor and train me. I'm hoping that still goes on in today's world. I know that's one of the things that we're wanting to do is to be able to teach how to become an unbiased scout, someone that's not, this is my guy. This is the world says he is good. We're looking for those people to develop their own opinions based on their training in a very unbiased manner and being able to then help kids advance, even if they're young men, college to professional, things of that nature.
Right. Yeah. I remember as a player, and you as well, you and I played together a long time back to high school and all. I would see a pitcher that threw hard. We had a couple of guys in our district that, 88 and above, and some of our teammates would, look at their velocity and automatically just freak out and be like, okay, well, we're gonna have a hard time today. Whereas I looked at it and I was like, okay, this is 88 and it's flat. I can't wait to get up there and hit it. A lot of scouts kind of take that same approach, where they see somebody that throws hard, so they think automatically that guy can play at a high level. Or now with all the analytics, they have exit velocity and all these different launch angle things, and they see a player in a cage and they automatically think, okay, his exit velocity is 100 miles an hour every at bat, but that doesn't translate onto the field sometimes. So talk a little bit about that, about the eye of the evaluator and kind of, what it takes to be a scout at this level.
Well, I think number one, people have to realize that baseball is a game of consistency and it's played over time. And a lot of time people will see one outing or one showcase or one tool and they get very, very excited. Kind of like what you were saying. You see a guy that throws really hard. So velocity is a tool, but we have to see him over time to see, can he throw it over that white thing that looks like a house? Right. Can you get it over the plate? Because there's a lot of guys that throw 95 and ball four is still ball four. You still get the free base. So there's other things involved in pitching. What's really changing in the game right now is the amount of investment going into the science of baseball, the analytics of baseball. If you look at where this came from, back in the 80s and 90s, they had radar guns, but they were not as sophisticated, right? So all these analytics that are being pushed, they're just tools as well to measure how one's performing. And at the end of the day, you want to be able to see baseball played over and over again. I think it'll come back to that because everything makes a full cycle. Whereas the guys like the Pete Rose, the Kirby Puckett, I can go on a list of guys that, they may not have had every tool, but if you watched them over time, you were like, dang, that guy can really play this game. And they're very special athletes. And you have to be able to do that. And it's very tough when guys go to one game and just measure a straight up tool. And we're going to go through tools a little bit later on and see what they're looking at. But I think that's one of the things that when you're learning how to scout is identifying, I saw a great day. I saw an okay day. I saw a bad day, but I'm going to see him multiple times. I'm going to get some history on this athlete so that I know what I'm talking about whenever I'm talking to others about him, whether it's your peers, whether it's talking to your bosses about this player, things of that nature. You want to make sure that you're certain, because anybody can have a good day and anybody can have a bad day in the game of baseball.
Yeah, I totally agree. One thing I want to point out, we're doing a certification class for, being a certified talent and evaluating specialist. You don't have to be a major league scout or a college recruiter to benefit from learning how to be a quality evaluator and a quality scout. A lot of things that we get, as scouts and, recruiters, we have these high school coaches and, summer league coaches that send us their players and information on their players. And, if they don't have the proper tools to actually evaluate properly, or the understanding of, what we're looking for, it makes it difficult. So, talk to me a little bit about, the importance of some of these, developmental coaches and, summer league showcase coaches and high school coaches, the importance of them getting trained properly to evaluate talent.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I mean, you and I have talked about this for probably 10 plus years, and I'm really glad that, with the college starting to certify people, it's going to give everybody an opportunity to learn and then be able to contribute. One of the things that people don't do is they don't understand the analytics and they don't understand how to measure properly. You still see that going on the internet right now. You'll see guys, showing their pull down. Let's say that's a term that's commonly used, and you'll see a guy running and throwing, and his pull down is 94. Unfortunately, to be a pitcher, you're going to start 60 foot 6 inches away. We're going to have to create everything from there. So some of what's being measured and some of the information that I get sent to me is, look at this guy on a pull down. Going, yeah, there's nowhere that pull down's great, and it shows that he can generate some power and velocity, and but I'm going to want to see it. I'm going to want to see it in a live game. That's me. That's things that I've learned. I think that's where we're trying to get coaches to understand some of the data points. And look, I'm a big believer in communicating with coaches to find out, because they're around these athletes more than anyone. One of the things that happens, though, that's flawed is that as they don't understand, they start hearing language that maybe you and I are using. I'll give you an example. Right now, the word dude is a big word, right? Everybody's like, hey, they got this guy and he's a dude. Well, I've noticed, depending on who's telling me that, sometimes their definition of a dude is an average high school player. Now, I don't want to offend them, but dude in my world is somebody that's going to potentially be a major league player, right? He's got tools that just stand out. He's that anomaly amongst all of his teammates. But other people have heard the word dude and they want to build up the players. So truth is really important to me. Hype is not so much.
Right. Yeah. And same thing when I used to scout for the Brewers, and even when I was a college recruiter, one of the most frustrating things is when you get a call from a coach and they say, hey, I got this guy. He throws 88. He pitches 88 or 90 or whatever it may be. And then you waste the time to get out there and he pitches at 83. Sure. He may have touched 88 at one point in time during a game, or sometimes we get, they send us video and you realize that, hey, that's the exit velocity.
Sure.
The exit velocity was 93. It wasn't the pitch, but the coaches will sit there and say, hey, I got this on video, and this kid pitched 93 today. So understanding that, when we're looking for pitchers, we want a guy that could throw 88 plus 4 times in a row, not just touch it one time in a game. So, if you want to talk a little bit about that and, understanding what it takes.
You were talking about things earlier. And one of the things that we want to teach is that, I think everybody, and we might have covered this in one of our books, But everybody should be able to gain the knowledge of what the basic tools are and the measurements are. So it's no longer something that's just in the industry and it's hidden and what are they looking for? Foot speed, things like that. Yeah, if you have an iPhone, you can get close. I'm not going to say it's laser perfect foot speed, but you're going to have an idea of can a guy run? Or you can use your stopwatch or again your iPhone, your Android to get a catcher's pop time. But how many times do you get called? I know I do. And I've got this catcher and he's a 182 and this other catcher's a 185. And I'm thinking, wow, this high school team's got better catchers than Major League Baseball. Right. And these companies out there that are doing showcases, they have 9 guys that are 16 years old that have a pop time of 178. And I'm thinking, okay, parents, you just wasted money. We've got flawed data. It's simply not true because they would be the best in the world right now at 16 years old, better than your current major leaguers. So understanding the data and then learning how to collect it and use it in a proficient way is really important, for parents and things that I tell parents all the time is, what you want to measure your son. Right? You want to know where he's at. You want baseline information. And then you want to train to get better. But if you don't know the baseline information, it's hard to have a starting point. For example, let's say a 7 flat 60 is a pretty good foot speed. Now, you don't run 60 yards in baseball. You're going to take a left turn after, you run 30. But the point is, it's a measurement that we can use to see, does he have foot speed? So, as a parent, you can go out to a football field and you can run 60 yards and you can measure it. Let's say he runs a 7 flat. Now you want to start training to get faster. Maybe a week or 2 weeks later after training, you're going to run again and see if your training is working. Did you get to a 6.9? Did you get to a 6.8? And what's going to happen then, once you have some of these tools, going to a showcase or getting in front of the right people is important. But if you're a guy like me, David, I don't know if you remember this. Whenever I was a freshman in high school, I ran an 8.660. Okay, that's slow. Mom and Dad weren't sending me to showcases, okay? I wasn't going. I had to work. I had to get faster. Now, again, I ended up pitching and playing short in college, at junior college, and then pitching at the Division I level and moving on. But with that being said, I worked from a freshman in high school to go from an 8.6 to about a 7.2. That's still not great, okay? And I know that, but that was a lot of work that had to go into it. And I think today's world, so many parents and so many kids and so many scouts are bypassing that this hard work has to take place. There's going to be a baseline of information. Not everybody's going to be fully mature at 15, 16, and 17 years old. I believe I just saw, a few weeks ago on social media, had 2 Cy Young winners that between them, they had 3 total college offers. Okay. So we have to get down to what is a person's routine? What are they doing day in, day out to get just 1% better each and every day? And when you have that routine, you're going to keep it for the rest of your playing career. Okay. You may adjust, but you're going to keep that hard work routine. If you don't, the game will pass you up. So we want to teach some of this to, not just the scouts, but we want to teach them what they need to be teaching to others about how to become your best in this game.
Right. And off of that, let's transition to the eye of the evaluator. I've been in professional baseball for a long time, as you have as well. But I remember, coming out of high school into college, I thought I learned a lot from my previous coaches. I didn't really learn the game till I got to the professional level. When you're looking at talent, now I can sit there and tell myself, I'm a pretty good evaluator with the naked eye. Sure. But I remember early on in my career, if we had a power hitter at the plate, I was going to try to paint the outside part of the plate, to keep him from getting a barrel on it. As I got more advanced into my career, started learning how to find holes and swings and different things, then I was able to say, okay, he's a power hitter. We don't want to leave it over the middle to outer part of the plate. Now we're going to bust him inside and try to take advantage of that hole. A lot of times as an evaluator, it's tough to see with the naked eye. You got to be in the game a long time to actually know what you're looking for. So asking, high school or, some of these younger coaches to scout, based strictly off of the naked eye is tough, So video analysis is pretty important, being able to slow videos down, things like that. Talk a little bit about, your experience with the eye of the evaluator and understanding, how to see talent.
Sure. Well, like you were just talking about, I'll give some examples, even name a few names. We've all had to develop. You remember a left-handed pitcher, Craig Taxi. Hey, Craig, if you look at this, we love you. You were full of potential. And every scout that ever saw Craig Taxi throw a bullpen wanted to sign him because he looked like a big leaguer. There was a problem, though, and I'm sure you remember this. The second you put a little traffic on him in a game, he wasn't mentally prepared. He needed more development because he may throw 3 balls over the first baseman's head, balk twice, and just struggled a lot. Well, but every evaluator, just like he would cost some guys their jobs. In fact, he was drafted, I believe, by the Dodgers back then. I'm not sure, can't remember, but he checked so many boxes except performance during a game. And so one of the things that I learned there, and I'm sure you did too, is, hey, I've got to be patient in my evaluation. So for me, the eye of the evaluator is more than just using my eyes. It's a general understanding of what I'm going to do. I tell a lot of people when they're going out to evaluate, don't start with 12 coaches told me about a player and that's all I'm going to look at. Go watch a lot of baseball, a lot. Okay. And you're going to start seeing things that, they don't always do it the same as someone else. And this world that you're going to see in social media and other people is they're trying to make everybody the same. But if you go and watch a lot of baseball, you're going to start seeing things and they're not always the same. Nobody's teaching people to hit like Hunter Pence, yet you're talking about a major leaguer. Okay. The only way you're going to do that is by somebody paying attention and seeing that, yes, he is different, but look what he's able to accomplish. And you're going to have to see him multiple times. I'm not going to go tell Hunter Pence to lift his hands, put his hands together, change his knuckles. You're just simply not going to do that because he's very successful. So I think for me, when you're teaching an evaluator how to look at things, and we call it the eye of the evaluator, we're looking at the general understanding. Show up early, watch a lot of baseball, watch their habits, see if they're coachable. Everybody says that when they're young, and then we get away from coachability. But what coachability means is that guy going to be able to obtain new information and apply it to himself? How long is that going to take? How quickly can he adapt to change? Because in the game of baseball, you might have a guy throwing 94 one inning from the left side, and the next inning you might have an 88 righty that's submarine. So you're going to have to make changes. Players are going to have to adapt. They're not going to have to be future scientists and make the best scores in physics, but they're going to have the ability to learn and process information. And for me, that all goes under coachability. And to see that, it's not going to be with your eyes. It's going to be a general understanding and learning of the player. So we're going to have to see him a lot, get out there and see a lot of baseball, take a lot of notes, and then continue to look back at what you've seen and continue to develop your skills over time.
Right. Yeah. Everybody wants to look at the 5 tools, and we actually talk about the 6th tool now, the mental makeup. I remember Craig Taxi very well. I remember when you called me when I was managing Pensacola Pelicans professional baseball and sent him to me. And the first time I saw him in the bullpen, I was like, "This is Randy Johnson. Why is this kid not in the big leagues?" And then first game he strikes out the first batter, and then next batter he gets a borderline call and can't throw a strike. So the mental makeup was his flaw. All his other tools were great. But on our scouting card, the one thing we have that is probably the most important part is the overall future potential, OFP. That's where I think a lot of scouts need to understand when you're talking about the eye of the evaluator. We're not just looking at the 5 tools. We're not just looking at, what he can do in a radar gun. We want to see what his overall future potential looks like. How far can he go in the game, before he reaches that cap.
Absolutely. Well, and there's a lot, what I'm hoping that cycle comes back around is, and it is with the changes in college baseball, now college sports at the higher levels, your Power 4 conferences, they're becoming minor league baseball. Guys are getting paid, et cetera. So guys are able to show over time that they can acclimate and perform well. But I'm hoping the game comes back around to where they have an understanding that guys are going to continue to get better. And that is tough. But sometimes kids, they're going to be at 18 years old, they're bone thin. They weigh 160 pounds. And the game moves on by him. They don't see that kid over the next 2 to 3 years where he becomes a man, puts on size and strength. Once he gets stronger, he's running faster, he's throwing harder, he's hitting further. All these tools start coming together, but it may not be till 21, 22, sometimes 23. And we're very impatient, the industry is. Whereas a good evaluator is able to project the future And it's based on a lot of things. Again, I say routine. Some of it is maturity, learning the family history. I think it's really important. And I think that'll come back. You see some guys breaking into the big leagues a little bit older now. They're signing guys a little bit older. Chris Sargent was a guy that got passed at Southern Miss after hitting like 51 home runs. Right now, again, I'm using specifics so people can look it up and know we're being honest with them, but he didn't catch at Southern Miss. We were fortunate that, some of the guys I've worked with, we had seen him in junior college. I had seen him catching, and we were able to help him get a independent job. In doing that, he started catching. And then he had a breakout season. He hit 385 with 35 home runs, 120 RBIs, and he was catching. He bounced it straight to Double-A and bypasses a little bit of, the affiliated baseball, but it was a tough road. But I think it could have been seen. There's various reasons why it wasn't. Still needs to get in the best shape of his life. And we all tell him that. The major league teams are telling him that now. But his future's still in front of him, and he's probably 24, 25. So this didn't happen at 16 and 17. So I'm hoping that as we continue to teach and certify more, coaches and scouts, that we can allow them to look at the overall future potential of what the kid can do. And a lot comes down to the routines and habits of the kid. And in time, he's going to get stronger. He's going to get faster because he has good work ethics and a good routine.
Right. Well, James, I want to thank you for joining us on this first segment of Mytime Sports Show, talking about the call to scout and eye of the evaluator. We'll be back, shortly with another segment talking about building the foundation of scouting. So thank you, and guys, catch you next time.
Sounds good.